All right. I am here with Diego Sampaio, and he is currently the founder and CEO of USA e-commerce fulfillment. How's it going, Diego?
Oh, good, Steve. Thanks so much for the opportunity, man.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into the nitty gritty here. But before we get into it, let's talk about how you got started, your origin story, and what got you into business and entrepreneurship.
Sure, sure. So, well, I'm 37. I'm originally from Brazil, but I've been living here in Florida since 2014. And I think that I was like probably the first generation that grew up with internet. So when I was like 11 or 12 years old, my father gave me a computer. I started like doing some HTML, developing websites. And that's actually when I started my endeavors. So I was developing websites for my father friends. And from there, I learned how to build up not a business, but something on the internet that after that became a business. And that's how my entrepreneur journey started. So, I mean, I've been doing I founded my first company when I was 16. And since then, for the last 21 years, I've been going through different endeavors and finding new problems to try to solve it.
Nice. So let's talk about the first initial venture. What was it that you really got started with initially with business?
Sure, sure. So I mean, it was early the 2000s, so about 2002. At that time, I was living in Brazil again. I was like 16 years old, and I started purchasing web hosting package here in the US and reselling that in Brazil. So we'd start with like the old virtual private servers, get a cPanel, starting creating web hosting accounts, and then resell that for Brazilian companies. That later on, when I turned 18, I became like legal, able to open up the business, legally open up the business. So I had the help of my father to open up the first company in Brazil when I was 18. That was 2002, 2003. And from there on, I started growing the company, acquiring more services. And then I created a data center in Brazil where I had my own services, my own servers. I had other companies doing co-location at that time. So that's when I actually got into like business and doing, and trying to expand the offer from the service that we had at the time.
Got it.
And
So
from,
this
from
was
of course, became other endeavors, but always around technology and internet.
very nice. So 16, you had to wait to start the initial entity. I love that. Love that. Repackaging servers and everything and
Yeah,
selling it. That's a true creation of like an arbitrage of taking it from one place and
it's
selling
true.
it to another. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
it's true.
awesome.
And it's interesting because that whole business nowadays, although it would be way easier to do the same thing nowadays, with the spread of technology, the competition is crazy high, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think that at that time I was at the right place at the right time. That what made me able to start that business.
Very cool. Very cool. So shifting gears, that was it Clickmasters was what that
Yes.
initial one was called? Okay. So what was next and how long was it before you started the next venture?
Okay, so that was around 2007, 2008. In Brazil, we had a social network that was called Orkut. That I mean,
Mhm.
it was from Google, right? And it was way before Facebook, I think, but it was really popular in Brazil. And Orkut didn't have a easy URL, so someone could get into your profile. So it was like a really long address they have to share. And then we came up with an idea that's called Me Adiciona, that is in Portuguese for like add me, to create like an online business card where people could add their different social networks and then just tell that address to others, and that would be easier for their friends to find them online. So I think that we started like with Orkut and then like Facebook, and I don't think there was Instagram at the time. It wasn't popular, but there was like a lot of smaller niche networks. And then we created that product. Actually, that was like a freemium. Anyone could hire that online, create their page, their social page, and then just share the link with their friends, and their friends would be able to find them in all other or in all social networks.
Cool. Cool. So What were some of the initial drivers, like with KPIs? What were you tracking to really define the success of the business?
Yeah, I think that at that time we were looking for growth. I mean, we just want to track the largest number of users.
Yeah.
I mean, we grew really rapid and were organic. So we got like to around 300,000, 400,000 active users in a few months or in a year or 2 years, something like this. And then, of course, other companies is starting looking for us as a way to attract a customer base. So that's right after that. That's when when I decided to sell the company and then make the exit from Ediciona.
Nice. And how did those initial conversations begin? Was it a customer? Was it a partner? And did they approach you? How did that work?
It was actually a partner. There was they were a social network, and the reason that they wanted to acquire us is because we were driving a lot of traffic for them, and they didn't want to lose that traffic from organic. I mean, it was 2007. Organic Google was way different than it is today on Google search. So they really need that traffic. They didn't want to lose that traffic.
Hmm.
So I mean, we were in a point that or we would close the company or we would have to sell the company. And then we got engaged with them, and then they decided to purchase. But it was way more because of the traffic and the database that we created than from the service itself.
Mm, got it. Got it. And did you work with like an intermediary with a broker? Did you shop it around to multiple different buyers?
No, at that time it was like straightforward. It was like we had a good offer, and then we decided to sell. There was no broker, nobody was assisting us in that process.
Got it.
But again, it was 2010, I think. So the market itself was completely different than what we have today, right? And then
Yeah.
we were in Brazil, not in the US. So I mean, there's way more difference in the scenario.
Yeah, yeah. And for young entrepreneurs listening that are maybe operating a business, they're growing it and they're thinking about potentially exiting, what tips could you give them around timing? Like, why was it the right time for you? Like, obviously, the 2010 market was much different than we are in today, but what kind of tips could you share around timing?
Sure. Well, I think that at that time the decision came to sell because we didn't find a way to make that project become profitable. That was the main reason, and we were not able to raise capital at that time. So we figured out that was a good timing for sell the company. But on my next experience, other experience that I had before after that, I'm sorry, raising capital and then selling the companies. I would say that the best moment for you to sell is not when things are not doing well. It's when you don't think that you can deliver the most of value for the company. So if you don't have someone that can help you to get to that point, that to the next stage of growth, then it's a good time for you to find someone to sell, because it's way better to sell when things are going good than when things are going bad, right? So when you start feeling that I'm not that right person to be here, or I'm not interested in this anymore, I gotta start a new cycle. You can, of course, there's a lot of space for marketplace where you can sell your business really well. And I mean, uh, uh, even smaller projects nowadays, they have some value, right? Because it's all about time. If I can save 1 year of developing something, that has a value for someone else. So I would
Mhm.
say that the best time for you to sell is when things are doing good, not when things are going bad.
Yeah. Yeah. When the trend is your friend going
Yes.
upwards.
Sure, sure.
And with the valuation, like how did you back into that number? Did they put the offer up first, or how did you kind of negotiate with the valuation?
No, at that time, I mean, we asked a number. It was based again on. I mean, the first thing that we did was to find out why they want to purchase us.
Yeah.
So in that case, it was because of traffic and because of the customer base. So that's how we started coming with value for that. Because if they were looking for, let's say, for revenue, the company would have zero value for them because the company was not profitable.
Yeah.
But we knew how much traffic we were generating for them. So we got those points that were important for them, and then we came up with a price. I don't remember exactly how we did the formula, but it was mostly based on the value that we were already delivering for them, and not what we wanted. Of course, it was what we could get from them based on what they were looking for.
Yeah. And there's a beautiful saying around the ability to pitch your business to someone else's vision. Like you go from pitching your vision and your business to basically describing what their business could do with yours. And it's like a shift in mindset completely of saying like, hey, this is how your business could thrive because of ours. And this is a great example of that, where traffic was the direct way of, extracting value for the acquiring company.
Yeah, yeah. I think that, I mean, when you're selling a company, it's not that different than when you're selling your product. I mean, you have
Mhm.
to find how you're gonna solve someone else's problem, right? If it's your product or your company, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the same thing. So again, if you develop a project that is not making money for you, but you may find a strategic partner that may look, I would take a year to develop that, and you already have that ready. I mean, how much value has that to bring the revenue that you could start bringing a year to today? So I
Yeah.
mean, it's just a matter of finding out how someone else can benefit from what you already have.
Yeah. Well said. And the next one is around preparedness. This is probably the most frequent question always, is people asking how to prepare a business. And what's your kind of take on this? What's the best things that somebody can do proactively with being prepared?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. I think that again, it's all based on the timing of the business. So when you are starting, I mean, there's not so much that you can offer to someone other than what you've already built, right? Once you get to the stage that the last company that I exit right now is like on 80, 90 team members, 7,000 customers, then you have a completely different KPI and completely different compliance that you need to follow on that. But I would say again, the first thing is to have a clear vision of what you're trying to develop and how you can generate value to others. And then comes again to your market. So if it's traffic, or if it's average ticket, or if how you can I mean, opportunities that you know that you can that someone else opportunities that you have to upsell to your current customer base, even though if you can do that right now, how much extra cash that could bring, so someone else could do that. But I would say that the most important thing is that you have a good financial control of your operation from day one, from how much did you invest, even how much time did you invest, because that has a value too. People usually don't realize that their time is really valuable too. So if you spend like a year developing something, that has a value for
Hmm.
you and for someone else too. So I mean, I
Yeah.
would keep track from the base things like on a regular bookkeeping, accounting standpoint, from a time control and even things that you created that may be simple to you, but may be a good additional for someone else. So sometimes when we are coding, we don't figure out that we are solving problems that is not just fit for us, but maybe a good fit for someone else too, right?
Hmm.
And that has a value too.
Hmm. Yeah. I like that. And with the deal itself, what was the team size when you guys went through the acquisition? Was it an earnout? Did the team go over to the social network that acquired you guys? What was that like?
No, no. At that time, we were like a small team. I think that we were no more than 5 people at the company at the time.
Okay.
So I mean, it was like a completely buyout. They just bought the name, the domain, the structure, the database. We made the transfer, and then we move on to another project. So it was really really simple process.
Nice. Super clean. Super clean. And was the, I guess, was it still around today? I mean, has it still operating because it was just a redirect, right?
Yeah, I mean they kept running the operation for another like 3 to 5 years, but then Orkut closed in Brazil, and then other social media. I mean, the market changed.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you don't need to have like a easier way to find you online. I mean, you go to it's mostly Instagram, and then from Instagram go to other places or TikTok or whatever. So I mean, the market itself changed, but I think that they kept running the company for another like few years, and they just redirect the traffic that they needed from us to their website, and that was it.
Got it. Well said. And The next bit that I wanted to go over was hiring. You mentioned it was only a five person team. So I have met, a good amount of entrepreneurs who kind of travel around in their tribe of like a small team that they'll continuously do ventures together with. But what could you share around hiring? Because it's very difficult for a lot of people out there to find those initial hires, to not make a misstep in those initial hires. So, what kind of tips could you share around hiring?
Yeah, hiring is always a challenge, and I would say that nowadays it's an even bigger challenge than it was like 10 years ago, because the market for those that for developers, product designers, whatever, it's really really hot right now, right? So it's hard to find good people for I mean that smaller companies can afford. That's the main thing. So not on my next endeavor after Mediciana that comes and Click Masters, I was a giver. I had the blessing. I was lucky to find people that were young. They were smart, good professionals, but they were young. They were looking for a challenge in their life, and their like their first main project, something that would differentiate them from others. So that's what I was. That was the good people that was able to hiring without a huge budget.
Mm-hmm.
It's different than right now. Right now, the company that at Globalfy, for example, the process of hiring is way more focused and way more structured. So we have like a recruiter, we have a full compliance process, benefits, and so on. I would say that the most important thing when you're starting is to find people that think like you. If you bring someone from a large company that they are used to work, let's say on a Google, it's not going to be easy for them to adapt to work in a small startup with like less resources and having to do everything, because it's different mindsets, different ways to work. So I would say that the best thing is to find people with the exactly same mindset that you have at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then on later on, when you start getting size, right, you start growing, then you can start bringing people that are like more senior, they're looking for more benefits or like a higher wage, then base it on their knowledge too. So it's like it's way more from what people want to do, from then you go from what people already did. Like there's a balance on that.
Got it. Got it. Well said. So let's move through the next ventures that you did leading up to the current venture.
Yeah. So after that, I mean, 2011, I came to the US with my family and I spent like a month here traveling. And then I saw the gift cards here. It was in
Mm-hmm.
like a restaurant. There was gift cards on the table. I said, look, I don't see too many gift cards in Brazil. What is this market? Then I started learning about the gift card industry and the prepaid cards. Came back to Brazil like at the end of that vacation, and then I created in Brazil a prepaid company. It's called Giver,
Mm-hmm.
where we would provide prepaid cards, so gift cards, and that could also be used as loyalty cards, loyalty programs for franchise networks. So I came with the technology. I developed that internally. I developed the technology. I came up with the project. I hired young people that wanted to build their first big thing. And then I started approaching companies around the city that I was living. Then we raised capital. So I went to investors, raised our first seed round. We started acquiring national customers in Brazil, like big brands with 500 stores, 1,000 stores in Brazil, and that's when things started going well. And I developed that company until 2014, when I sold the majority stake of the company for that venture fund, and then I did a complete exit like 2 or 3 years later. When I sold 100% of my shares to the venture fund. And then a few years later, they sold the whole company to a larger group in Brazil too.
Oh, nice. Nice. So, how big did that team get while you were scaling that up?
I think that we got like to about 20 people until 2014, if I'm not wrong. I know that the company is still running. Now they probably are getting close to the hundreds employees. But at the time, it was like 17 or 20 people, all based in Brazil.
Nice, nice. I always like hearing about products that get built and acquired and that they still keep running. I think it's such a that's like an outlier. Usually it's, run for a couple years. Once the founder leaves, it's just kind of falls apart. It's kind of how it goes in traditional senses, but many times it
Sure.
works.
Yeah, and that company, I mean, when I left as co-founder in 2014, because that cycle in my life was ended, and I want to move to the US, so I want to start something different here in the US. Uh, Although I stepped down as CEO, I had someone that was already working with us stepping up as a CEO. He kept managing the company for the next 5 years, and then the company was acquired, and they kept the structure as it was. So the CEO that replaced me is still run as the CEO, but now at that division inside a bigger software company in Brazil.
Nice. Very nice. So that shifts to the finale question. Knowing what you know now, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself 10 years ago?
Uh, I like to think that not knowing everything or not knowing too much about something is what drives me and drives a lot of entrepreneurs to put themselves in to make themselves starting developing something new. Like if we knew everything that we would have to go through to get to where we are, we would probably not start doing that. So like the ignorance, like that thing like, oh, I think that I know how to solve that problem, and then let's do it. It's way more important than draw the next 10 years of your business and try to figure out everything in advance. So what I well, actually, I just exited another company, and what I'm doing is like, let me find out what I'm going to develop, and let me learn the minimum that I need to start doing that. Once I start doing that, that's when I'm going to really learn how is to be in that industry, how is to be in that business, and how I can disrupt that or add value to that. But if you are waiting for the right time, if you are just preparing yourself to do the first step, you're probably never going to do that.
Hmm. Well said. Well said. Well, that leads us to what you're working on now. What are you building now, and where can people learn about it?
Nice, Steve. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm co-founder at Globalfy. That is a banking and a platform for international founders to do business in the US. After 8 years, I just left as CEO. My co-founder and CEO now took place as CEO, and I'm focused on USA e-commerce fulfillment. That is actually a spin-off from Globalfy, where we provide logistics service for brands from outside the US that are launching their services here in the US. So we do like general logistics, pick and pack, FBA prep for brands that want to sell their products in the US, but they don't have like their own operations here in the country. So we're 3PL for international brands.
Very cool. Very cool. And what stage are you at? Did you just start the kind of 3PL for international brands, or is it
It
progressing?
it's actually a spin-off from Globalfy.
Okay.
So it started 8 years ago, but it really became like a full-time business early this year. That's
Hmm.
when we really did the spin-off, and then we started creating the team. So right now we have around 10 people in that team for the logistics, and then we're growing. So this year we did around 40% growth year over year, and then we're looking to do another 50 to 6% growth next year.
Cool. Very cool. All right. And where can people go and learn more about it?
Nice. So yeah, about Globalfy is www.globalfyfy.com, and for the fulfillment, USA ecommercefulfillment.com.
Got it. Very cool. Well, wherever you guys are listening on iTunes or Spotify, the links that Diego mentioned will be in the show notes. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, Diego.
Thank you very much, Steve. It was a pleasure.